Thanks for joining us for another edition of Communication Steroids, the weekly podcast that shows you how to become a better public speaker, a more effective presenter, and a conscious and clear communicator. This is where you can find tips, tools, and techniques that you can put to use today. Here are your hosts of Communication Steroids, Tim Gonzo Gordon and Roger Pike.
Today's title, 3 Things Never to Do with a Presentation.
And that's a fact.
Hi, Roger.
Hi, Tim.
Hey, it's the podcast from CommunicationSteroids.com. And I like lists. Lists are cool. Lists are great. Lists help you organize. Lists help you think.
Yeah, they do, for a fact.
And you can even memorize most lists if they're less than 4.
In other words, if they conform to our rule of 3.
Yeah, if they're a rule of 3s. Now, you actually have a list that's based on a rule of 3s today, in a sense.
Well, it is, in a sense. It's the 3 things you must never do with a presentation. Now,
really?
That almost sounds like the beginning of a joke, but it's not. I mean, we're serious here. The 3 things you must never do with a presentation. You must never show up nude. I mean, there really are some basic rules, and you need to consider those rules every time you give a presentation. There are 3 things you just don't do.
Well, obviously, you could make a list of 23 things,
sure,
but that would make a really long podcast, and most of it would go over our heads as well as yours.
Yeah, nobody would remember them.
So if you reduce it to 3s, then yeah, we got some stuff to talk about here. So number 1,
never forget your audience. Never take them for granted.
Ooh, never take your audience for granted. Now, do you really think speakers do?
Yes,
I do.
All
the time, yes.
Yeah, I mean, they show up the second that they're supposed to give their speech, and they don't know the room. They don't understand what the acoustics are. They don't understand where their voice is going to carry and where their mic's going to be, and they don't know how the stage is going to be set up because they're not there. They're in advance. They're taking their audience for granted. They haven't asked the appropriate questions when they've set up the gig, for example. They haven't asked whether the people they're going to be talking to is a general crowd or is a specific professional discipline. They can't make assumptions regarding their audience's prior knowledge of the subject of their presentation if they don't know what their audience's prior knowledge is going to be.
Yeah, you got to ask questions of the organizer. What kind of audience is the makeup? Can you describe a typical audience member? What is their interest in this subject? What is their knowledge in this subject? You don't want to aim your speech to something that's really below their level, so it's like first grade level, and they're in junior. Yeah, you lose them. Or you don't want to be way over their head and start talking about stuff that they don't even understand
because they don't get it. One way or the other, you lose them.
Any of that stuff really boils down to number 1 on our list today: taking your audience for granted.
Never take your audience for granted. They're the reason that you're there. They're the reason there's a paycheck in your wallet. They are why you've been hired to do the gig. Never take them for granted.
All right. So number 2.
Number 2 is kind of a corollary to number 1, but yeah, I guess not really. Never forget your goals.
Never forget your goals. Yeah, okay. Never mind. I was going to go somewhere else, but yeah, you can't forget your goals. What are your goals going into the speech? What are your goals going to be like? Your long-term goals, your short-term goals. Does this speech even meet your goals? Or are you just doing it for fun? Does it meet any other goals? Not only your goals, but also your audience's goals.
Right. I've seen speakers who have been hired by an organization to deliver a presentation on a certain subject with a certain expected outcome. I suppose you could. The same thing as never forget your goals is always focus on your outcome. But the idea is that you're there for a purpose. If everything that you do isn't directed towards that purpose, then you're just rambling and you're wasting your organizers, your sponsors' money. Never forget what you're there for. Don't ramble. Target to reach your goal. Now that doesn't mean you can't digress. If it adds humor or excitement to the presentation, if it pulls people in so that they hear the rest of what you're going to say, sure, you can tell a joke if that gets your crowd with you, so that they're actually listening to the goals. But remember what your outcome is supposed to be. Remember what those people are supposed to leave that room with, and make sure they get it.
And part of it has to do with your own goals. If the speech that you're giving does not meet your own goals, how can it possibly meet the goals of the audience that you're talking to? Mm-hmm. You've got to have some goals that fit your desire to speak, your career that you're on the path of, and other goals. So you got to make sure that fits. And if you take on a speech that really sort of you're doing it as a favor to a friend, or you're doing it because someone offered you a paycheck to go do something, but it doesn't really fit with what you want to talk about, but you'll do it anyway, I think you're really doing a disservice, a lack of respect to yourself as well as to your audience.
Yeah, you need to be the best you can be. I mean, you've heard it before, and we'll say it again. But the point is that you have personal goals with regards to every presentation that you give, whether it's a presentation in front of a meeting for some kind of task-oriented committee or group or team
Within work, sure. Yeah.
within your work, and maybe there are only 7 members of your team, and you've been tasked with presenting to that group information on a specific element of the thing that they're trying to do. That's still a presentation, and you need to go into that presentation with goals. It can be goals for personal growth, and then goals for making sure that they leave that room with the information that they're going to need to go forward. Mm-hmm. And if you're not there, if you're not meeting those goals, then why bother with the presentation, except that the boss told you had to.
And keeping your job is also a good goal.
Keeping your job is a darn good goal.
Number 3, Roger.
Number 3 on my list is never fail to measure your results.
Well, that I think is a very important thing, and you can look at that from a lot of different ways. Number one, of course, would be results of, did your audience understand it? Did you get good feedback from them? Did the organizer understand what you were doing? Did they like what you were doing? Did they give you a great letter of recommendation, for instance?
Did people walk away with what you wanted them to walk away with? And how do you know that? And I think that's important for you to do. For a lot of reasons, not the least of which is you always want to get better. Now, you tell a story in some of the classes that we do.
Yeah.
You tell a story of a very accomplished public speaker, a man who's considered quite exceptional in his field.
Yes.
Who every couple of years hires someone to evaluate him.
He hires a personal coach to help him improve, so that his goal is to get better, and to, if he's getting into habits, crutches, he wants to catch them.
And he talks about the fact that the last one he hired did.
Yeah.
It's had several pages of things he needed to work on.
And he was grateful for that, because that gave him good goals. It helped to refocus a lot of what he was doing. It helped bring attention to things that he may not have seen at all.
Now, here is a person who is a recognized leader in his field, and his field is presenting.
Yes.
Who is hiring people to help him become a better presenter. Now, if he is always evaluating, always measuring his results, if he is an expert at it and still looking to measure his results, what does that say about the rest of us?
If you're looking to be a public speaker and be in this guy's field, this is the kind of people you're up against. So you better be doing this as well.
You better be doing it too. And it's just as true inside your organization. Again, if you're giving that presentation to that team-oriented task force, you want to be the go-to guy for your boss. You want to be the one who's always selected for those teams, which means you need to make sure that your presentations keep getting better.
Keep getting better, yeah. All right, so that wraps up our podcast today. Two more final words. Go Ducks.
Yeah, well, we're recording this on the day before the national championship, or the Natty, as we like to call it here in Oregon.
I have no idea where the Natty came from.
I don't know either, but
I keep seeing it. Yeah, we're going to the Natty. You just got a call from your daughter who's down there.
Yeah, she's in Glendale right now. I can't be. I've been following the Ducks for 40 years. She's been following the Ducks for, 40 weeks? No, I'm kidding. She goes to the U of O, so she's following in Dad's footsteps, I guess.
But no tickets.
But she couldn't score a ticket.
She's going to have to watch it like everyone else on the television.
On the telly. But the thing about it is, and in case you don't know this about a college football championship, there are a ton of events in that area for the whole weekend. And, there are pep rallies and tailgates and people. I mean, they just throw big parties. And everybody's invited.
On and on and on and on. Yeah, and when this gets posted, probably Tuesday morning, the morning after the game.
That morning.
Because it's going to be a pretty quick turnaround. Usually it's a week turnaround, but actually the way our schedule is, we're recording this 2 days ahead of time. The game will be done. It'll be over. Yeah. One of those two teams will have been crowned the national champion.
I'm going to stare directly into the camera, and I'm going to say this. Yeah, I see it. If you are watching this and the Ducks have won, the person that you're looking at right now is a very happy man.
You're not going to make a prediction?
If you are watching this and the Ducks have lost, I am mired in despair. So just so you know, this person right here, me, that's fact. I'm going to make a prediction. 48-27, Oregon.
Well, let's see. The over-under, as I recall, is 75 points.
75. It's huge.
And so that means if you're betting in Vegas on the over-under, you either bet for the overall score between the two teams to go over or under. I think it's going to go over 75 points.
Yeah, well, 48-27 is 75.
Well, So you're aiming right at the
so
you would break even.
Yeah. 48-27. I think it's going to be the final.
Yeah. All right. 48-27. Wow. All right. Well, we'll see. I'm thinking the Ducks will win too. So that does the podcast. The end. We're at the end, and that is our goal. We've achieved our goal, and we hope you achieve yours. Thanks for listeroids.com, the podcast. I'm Tim Gordon.
I'm Roger Pike.